In this video, I'm going to be showing you how we ensure our cold emails always land in the inbox. And this is actually the internal deliverability testing that we do on a weekly basis. And I'll be showing you the automations that we use, what it looks like on the back end in our actual system, and also just showing you how you would do it manually if you didn't want to build out this entire three-part automation on your own. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So let me give you a quick outline of the structure of this video. First, we'll be going over the tool stack, every software that we use to make this happen. In the first section of the video, I'll be showing you how to do this manually, and also the pros and cons of doing it with that approach. And then the second part of the video, where I go over the automated process, the automations that we have, and what it looks like in our actual system, and the pros and cons of that option as well. So to go over the tool stack, the first tool that we really use and sort of is our single source of truth is Airtable. We use this as our sort of tool that sits on top of everything else in terms of sort of data that we're pulling in, just because we have a lot of different moving parts. For example, we send our emails via Smart Lead. So we want our replies and sort of the different lead information to be stored in one place. So we use Airtable and we pull the analytics in there as well. And then in terms of deliverability, we use another tool. So we pull the data from that to bring into Airtable. Really, the best benefit for us is, since we're using new tools every single month, every single week, and that we're testing, we want it to be able to come back to one single place once we sort of decide to move forward with it. If we were to stick with, for example, one software that wasn't sort of an aggregator like Airtable is, then we would have all of our email data living in one place, and then our deliverability analytics living in one place. And that would cause issues eventually when we would be trying to sort of consolidate that data and look at it together instead of only having separate views of that data. So the second tool that we use is Make. It's our current automation tool that makes everything work like clockwork. Previously, we were using Zapier as our main tool, and it worked for the time. But over time, it got more and more expensive, and also we didn't have the functionality that we were looking for. So we started running into issues. So eventually, I decided to make the decision to just completely move to Make, just because we're able to have that more custom approach with our automation flows. The third software we use to make this system work is Smart Lead. So it's actually our current email sending tool. So we use this to send emails to leads. We use this to also do our deliverability testing. And then fourth is MailReach. This is the current deliverability tool that we use. So really, we use this to check our inbox placements, and this is sort of the interchangeable tool that I was hinting towards in Airtable. So over time, MailReach may or may not be the best option to do what we're trying to do. And if that ever became the case, we would like to be able to still pull that data into our Airtable dashboard, just so we would always have access to it and be able to make educated decisions instead of being stuck inside of MailReach's platform. So to go over the first option that you would have if you were trying to create a similar system, it's manual testing, right? So we're huge advocates of automations and AI, but in the situation that you're currently in, you might not be ready to build a complex solution, especially if you're only getting started with cold email. So for that reason, let me just quickly show you how you would go about testing an inbox manually. So the first piece is you'd have to create a MailReach account. So once you're logged in, this is sort of what it looks like. You'd click onto Spam Checker. You'd create a new one-off spam test. And let me just quickly give you a demo of what this would look like. You'd copy this link. You'd go into your email tool. We use very basic copy. We don't pitch in this test email, because what we're trying to get is the super bare bones, would this email land in the inbox regardless of the copy. So if we started, like, one thing you could do is put the actual pitch that you're testing, just because we test so many different pitches for so many different clients. We just stick to a bare bones script of, hey Will, thanks for getting back to me, can you please provide me with the email of the best person on your team to contact. super basic and sort of a typical email that you would see, um, like that Gmail would see from somebody sending to another person. And then you copy the email list here, recipients, add them, and then you press send. And then once you've sent that email, we can click on step 3, get your score. It'll take a couple seconds to load here, which we will wait. And then you get to see sort of as they come in, landing in the inbox, and then pending. And then sometimes if an email lands in spam, this will be highlighted as spam. Or sometimes if the email is never lands, it's tagged as missing, which is, you can take that as a spam reply, just because that means Gmail or this account that they have as their sort of receiver email never received it, which is a huge red flag, and which means it either landed, it just got automatically blocked in the server. So just something to consider. But missing is also a negative reply. So we got a 10 out of 10 on this specific test. This is with my personal email, so it's not an email that we use. So sometimes you get scores like 6.7, 8.7. So it really depends. So as you can see, that took maybe a minute, 2 minutes. It's just the only sort of pro here is that you know that it's working and you don't have to worry about the automation breaking at any point. But some cons is just it's not very scalable. Like you run into the issue where if you were to do this for 100 inboxes, even more than 10 inboxes, it's super tedious. And you don't have somewhere to store that data. So if in theory, like you'd come in here, you'd see, okay, 10 out of 10, then you'd have to write sort of a new entry for that specific email, scored at 10 out of 10 on this date. Very tedious if you're sending from a lot of inboxes. So we prefer to just automate this process just to make it easier. Another issue or another con from this method is it's not being sent from the email sending tool. So normally when you're sending cold emails, it'd be an automated platform, either Instantly, Reach, or Smartlead, which is the one that we use. And if you are sending directly from Gmail, you do tend to get better results, but it's also sort of skewed because it's coming from a direct source and it's not through the automated process that you're normally sending from. And then another just piece of like this taking a long time is that you'd have to log into every individual email account that you have, and like doing this for more than 10 inboxes is extremely tedious, just because sometimes you have 2FA that you have to consider as well. So it'd be login, 2FA, and then actually send the email, and then review the results, and then store it. It just takes a very, very long time. So instead, we have built an automation to automate this entire process for us, which starts, the first part is actually creating the tests. So let me just walk you through that automation directly in Make. So the first part of the automation is it's scheduled for Saturdays at 8 a.m. We send this on the weekends just because we're not sending emails to leads during this time, and we don't want to mess with the actual email accounts' like sending limits on a daily basis. So on Saturdays, we find all of the active inboxes that we have that we want to be testing. We put a filter here that we do want to have monitoring turned on for this lead, so that's done in Airtable. And then we create the spam test using MailReach's API. We then take that data and then we iterate it just so it spits out only the data that we need, so the first name, email, to create sort of the lead list, those 30 emails that you saw that I added in the recipient section. And then we create a couple variables here just to help with our tracking on a week-to-week basis. And then we create the campaign. So what we do here is we put the week of the year. So it's like, for example, W42 2024. And then we put the actual email address that is used here to actually create that campaign. And then we generate a report in our Airtable dashboard to actually track that this lead or that this deliverability test is started. So we do that. Now let me quickly show you what that looks like in Airtable. So in Airtable, it would look like this. Well, what it would look like actually is without that email score. So it would say not started, the health is unsure, and then, but we would have the link to the mail reach test that we created, link to the smart lead campaign that we created, and as well the so that code that we created to have the email and the first name, and then it automatically connects to the inbox that is being used that we have in another part of our system, so we can track week over week the deliverability for that specific email. And then that's sort of the only important part. We also connect it onto our weekly analytics that we pull. So this test shows up in a very pretty sort of report where we're able to see all of the inboxes tested that week, um, their average score, and if there's any of them that we need to delete and create new accounts for and replace. Um, but we did do these tests, and I'll be going over these numbers uh, in after the third part of this automation. I just want to show you what that looked like. Then the second part of the automation is actually starting the tests. So all we did in the first part was just creating them. We did decide to split up this test because we did run into an issue where we were timing out. Um, when it was doing the part one and two in the same automation. So now it's we create the part one and then we do part two, which is a lot more efficient, and we don't run into the issue of if we're doing more than 100 tests in one go, then sometimes it would just cancel and then we sort of have to restart it for those that canceled. We'd have to look into it. So that's why we split it up into two. So let me show you this automation quickly. So this is 30 minutes after the other automation started. We find all the tests that are pending. So that's any tests that don't have an email score. Then we set a couple variables that I will not be showing. And then we add those leads. So we add that code that automatically adds those leads. And then we update the schedule so that it sends right away. And then we put a 3-minute in between just so it sends very quickly. Um, then we update all the settings, and then we actually update the email accounts settings so that we normally only send 20 emails per day per email account, but because there's 30 leads, we don't want it to take 2 days. So we actually update the settings up to 40. And then just in case anything happened or we sent a follow-up on Saturday for whatever reason, we never run into issues. So we actually set it to 40, and we decrease the time limit in between just so they send out a lot quicker. And then we make the system sleep for 5 seconds before continuing on. We put the sleep just because it's an API rate limit on SmartLead's end that we put just so it continues working. Then in here, we actually add the script. So that same script that we had in Gmail, what we do is like, hey, Will, first name, just want to confirm that we're still good for a meeting later today. Very basic copy. We're not putting our actual sales pitch, which we could, but just not something we do at the moment. And then you have to add that full ID into that copy. Then we actually connect that email account into that campaign, and then we start the campaign. So at this point, campaign is launched, it's sending, and then we actually wait until the Monday. So this is all happening Saturday morning. On Monday, we actually pull all the data. So we extract the results, and it actually gets updated into our Airtable. Just to show you what this looks like after the part two. It's like week 42, the actual email that we used, and then the leads are all added in here. And then we like this campaign here, we've sent all 30, and we sent it in one go. So it's not over multiple days, and it would follow our actual email sending limit. It does it very efficiently. So now let me show you part three just to finalize this. Again, we set the variable of our Smart Lead API key there, scheduled Monday at 6 a.m. And then again, we find the pending test. So any one of those records that doesn't have an email score, we go find that mail reach, the data that was pulled from it. We get the score. We update the email accounts back to their original state, so 20 emails per day, with I think it's an 11-minute gap in between, and then we update the deliverability test with that email score, and then we sort of update that campaign to tag it as a completed test, so then it doesn't stay in our main view in Smartly, just so it clears it up. Just because once you're dealing with hundreds of email inboxes, like you're doing hundreds of tests at the same time, we don't want to see all of those in our main sort of Smart Lead view. So we cancel or we stop those tests. So that's really it. So once you're in here, you're able to build dashboards to sort of have this data. Like for us at the moment, these like BR3TON outbound domains are in recovery, so they're on. Like we're watching them. If these accounts were sending emails, we would consider pausing them to not be sending emails. Um, so just putting them back into warm up. And if deliverability kept on getting worse, or I believe it's below 5 is our limit. Yeah, so below 5 is our at risk. We just kill the inbox. We don't worry about it. So we would most likely in this case, just because there's 2 domains and I didn't test the rest of them for this example, or the rest of the other account that we have on here, we would be killing this domain and not using it to send emails anymore, and we would be creating a new domain with new inboxes. I just wanted to quickly show you what it looks like on our end, because that was just the data side of Airtable. Like one of the best benefits about Airtable is that you can build really great dashboards. So what we have here is the deliverability section. So it's like on a weekly basis, we'll be able to see like here, like out of our tests, how many are in recovery, how many are healthy, and then we broke it down into domains and their respective healths and like where they're standing. And then it just summarizes the data very well for us on a week to week, so we can see, all right, so BR3TON outbound has been performing very poorly for the last 3-4 weeks. Let's kill it and finalize that decision instead of just basing it on a one-time weekly event. And this is just something you're not able to do if you followed the process manually. It'd be very hard to catch on that the BR3TON outbound email inboxes, for example, are scoring poorly with you clicking into every single test and looking at them. It's like you'd have to store that data. It'd be very, very tedious. And then as well, we track the actual warm-up reputation for the inboxes that were tested in this. So we're able to see that this domain is still having good warm-up deliverability, but they're not landing in the inboxes. So if we start seeing that warm-up is performing poorly and landing in the inbox is performing poorly, we also delete the account and just create a new one from there. And then with this, we generate weekly reports to send to ourselves and to our clients, just so we can see the averages of all the accounts, which ones are to be considered to be deleted, just so it's easy for us to take action on that. And that is about it for the entire system. So let me just quickly finalize the conclusion on this part. So pros, you get more accurate data. You're also able to, well, it's more accurate results because we're actually sending from Smart Lead directly. We also are easily able to scale with as many inboxes as we need. We don't have any limits on that part, and it's not a job that we need to hire a VA and they spend 5 minutes per inbox, and then if we have 600 inboxes, like that's a very, very tedious task that can be easily automated. And now that it's automated, we're not wasting all that time doing this when it doesn't really bring doing the task itself doesn't bring value, just because it's sort of maintenance. So being able to have it automated is super super useful. The only con is that it does require some expertise to get this built out. You can build it out yourself, but it's just to understand the tools that need to connect and then updating the settings. That is sort of the only con that I can imagine. But overall, it's a very useful system that we use every single week. Our clients see a lot of value in it. We see a lot of value in it. And it helps us just make more educated decisions with deliverability. Especially sometimes you do feel like you are sort of in the dark with what's happening. So with us tracking, are we landing in the inboxes of Gmail and Outlook accounts? Is our warm up okay? Are the reply rates on those inbox is also healthy. So if we have other inboxes that are getting like a 2 to 5% reply rate, then we know they're okay. But if it drops below that and we're not landing in inboxes and our warm-ups doing like our warm-up reputation is performing poorly, then it's all indications that that email account is close, if not already dead. So we kill it and then we set up a new one. So that is the our process for deliverability testing. If you have any questions, feel free to message me directly on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to reach me, or leave a comment on this video. And yeah, so that's everything for this video. I hope you found value in it, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, bye bye.